You've done the work. You've read the books, you've created the vision board, you've recited the affirmations until your throat was sore. You are thinking all the right thoughts. So why is your reality still stuck? Why does success still feel like a distant shore you can see but never reach? Because you've been given a map with the most important territory missing. This story will reveal the profound biological truth that your positive thoughts are useless if your body is living in a state of fear. It will show you that your nervous system, not your mind, is the true architect of your reality, and it will give you the key to finally fixing it. By the end of this journey, you will understand how to switch your body from a state of survival to a state of creation, and finally manifest the life you've only been able to think about. Liam was a prisoner of positive thinking. At 37, he was a senior financial analyst for a massive investment firm, a master of data, trends, and logical projections. His life was a testament to mental discipline. His apartment was a minimalist shrine to order, his diet was optimized for cognitive function, and his bookshelf was a library of every self-help and manifestation guru of the last 50 years. He knew the principles inside and out. He scripted, he visualized, he meditated on abundance. Yet, his own life was a flatline of quiet desperation. He was successful on paper, but he felt a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety, a feeling that disaster was perpetually lurking just around the corner. His most sacred desire was to break free. He dreamed of launching his own ethical investment fund, a small, agile company that would invest in sustainable and socially responsible ventures. It was a dream that felt expansive, aligned, and true. It was the version of himself he wanted to become. But the thought of leaving his secure, high-paying job, of venturing into the unknown, triggered a level of visceral, body-based terror that no amount of positive thinking could touch. His thoughts would say, "I am a courageous risk-taker," but his body would respond with a racing heart, shallow breathing, and a cold sweat. His antagonist was not a person or a circumstance, but a ghost living in his own biology, the ghost of a childhood defined by scarcity. He had grown up with loving but constantly struggling parents, where every month was a tightrope walk of unpaid bills and financial uncertainty. Though he was now a wealthy man, his nervous system was still that of a scared 8-year-old boy, perpetually braced for the next financial catastrophe. His body was trapped in the past, a hypervigilant survival machine that overrode any positive command his conscious mind tried to give it. One morning, after a particularly vivid visualization of his new company's launch, he was hit with a dizzy spell so intense he had to grip his marble countertop to keep from falling. It wasn't a panic attack. It was a biological veto. His nervous system was screaming, "It is not safe to expand." He was a man whose mind was trying to fly while his body was anchored in stone. Is he doomed to be a prisoner of his own biology, his dreams forever held hostage by a past his body refuses to forget? Or is there a way to communicate with the primal intelligence of his nervous system, a language that has nothing to do with words and everything to do with feeling? If you have ever felt that frustrating gap between what you think and what you experience, subscribe. This story contains the key to closing it forever. The dizzy spell was a terrifying wake-up call. It was the closing of the previous loop. Liam could no longer deny that his problem was deeper than his mindset. It was physiological. His body was in open rebellion. The new loop opened with a strange and unwelcome assignment from his firm. He was being sent to Salvador Bahia for a month to oversee the final stages of a major acquisition of a local tech company. For Liam, who thrived in the predictable, concrete jungle of Sao Paulo, the thought of Salvador was a nightmare. It was a city known for its vibrant, chaotic, and deeply sensual energy, everything his rigid, controlled world was not. He arrived in a wave of overwhelming sensory input. The air in Salvador was thick with the smells of denned oil, salt from the Atlantic, and blooming flowers. The sounds were a polyrhythmic symphony of drumming from distant blocos afros, the musical call of street vendors, and the joyful chatter of people who seemed to live their lives entirely in the present moment. His nervous system, already on high alert, went into overdrive. The city was a living, breathing embodiment of everything he was not: fluid, spontaneous, and unapologetically alive. After a tense week of sterile boardroom meetings, he found himself wandering aimlessly through the historic Pelerinho district one evening, the cobblestone streets echoing with a sound that was both a beat and a melody. He followed it to a small, packed square where a crowd had gathered in a circle, a rota. In the center, two figures were engaged in a fluid, dance-like martial art. It was capoeira. Liam, the analyst, watched, trying to deconstruct it, to find the pattern. But there was no predictable pattern. It was a conversation of bodies, a dynamic flow of attack and evasion, all orchestrated by the strange, mournful, buzzing sound of an instrument he would later learn was the marimba. In the heart of the rota, leading the music and the energy, was an old man, perhaps in his late 70s, but moving with the supple grace of a man half his age. His face was a beautiful map of wrinkles, and his eyes held a deep, unshakable calm, a profound sense of being centered in his own body. This was Mestre João. After the rota ended and the crowd dispersed, Liam found himself lingering. The mestre was packing his instruments, and he looked up at Liam, his gaze both gentle and piercing. "You have a strong mind," Mestre João said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone. "It wasn't a question. But your body does not believe its stories. It is singing a sad, frightened song." The accuracy of the statement struck Liam with the force of a physical blow. Here was a man who, in 5 minutes of observation, had seen the core truth of Liam's entire existence. Liam, the articulate analyst, was speechless. Mestre João simply smiled. "The body does not learn from words," he said, gesturing to the now empty square. "It learns from rhythm. Come to my academy tomorrow. Do not come to think. Come to listen." He has been offered an invitation not to a class, but to a different way of being, by a man who seems to speak the language of the body itself. But can a man who has lived his entire life in his head truly learn to listen with his cells? What will happen when his analytical mind confronts the primal wisdom of rhythm? Liam, propelled by a desperation that overrode his skepticism, went to Mestre João's academy the next morning. The academy was a simple open-air space with a worn wooden floor and a view of the ocean. This closed the previous loop. He had accepted the strange invitation. But the new loop of conflict began the moment he tried to participate. The class started not with kicks and acrobatics, but with the ginga, the fundamental back-and-forth, flowing movement of capoeira. For the other students, it was as natural as breathing. For Liam, it was a humiliating ordeal. He was stiff, awkward, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. His mind was trying to analyze the steps, to break the flow down into a logical sequence, but his body refused to cooperate. He was thinking, not feeling. Mestre João watched him for a long time before stopping the class. He came to Liam and placed a hand on his chest. "You are trying to command your body like a general," he said, his voice firm but kind. "But your body is not a soldier. It is a frightened child. You cannot command a frightened child. You must soothe it. You must teach it that it is safe." He then tried to guide Liam through the movement, but Liam's muscles were locked in a state of chronic, unconscious tension. The ghost of scarcity was in every clenched fiber, screaming that letting go, flowing, being unpredictable, was dangerous. He was failing, utterly and completely, in a way he had never failed before. He couldn't analyze his way to success. The external conflict arrived that evening with the shrill ring of his phone. It was his director from São Paulo, a man named Alvaro, who was the epitome of corporate hustle. "Liam, the deal is closing faster than we thought," Alvaro said, his voice impatient. "I need you back here in a week. We're restructuring, and there's a new departmental head position opening up. It's yours if you want it. It's the next logical step in your career. More money, more responsibility. It's what you've been working for." The offer was a powerful magnet, pulling him back to the world where he was competent, respected, and in control. A world where success was measured in numbers, not in the graceful flow of a body. When he told Mestre João about the offer the next day, the old man simply nodded. The frightened child always wants to run back to the room it knows, even if the room is a prison. Mestre Joao then introduced a concept that was utterly alien to Liam. The purpose of the Jinga is not to prepare for a fight, he explained. It is to train the body to remain in a state of relaxed readiness, of creative flow, even in the face of uncertainty. It is a way to regulate the nervous system. We do not practice to fight. We practice to feel safe. He has been shown the path to healing his body, but it is a path of surrender, not of control. Meanwhile, his old life is offering him the ultimate prize for his mastery of control. How can he possibly choose this path of humiliating failure over the promise of guaranteed, familiar success? Liam's world split into two. By day, he was the sharp, efficient analyst from Sao Paulo, wrapping up the final details of the acquisition. In the early mornings and late evenings, he was the clumsy, struggling student in Mestre Joao's academy. The deadline to give his boss, Alvaro, an answer about the promotion loomed at the end of his month in Salvador, creating a constant, low-level hum of pressure that mirrored the anxiety in his nervous system. This internal conflict was amplified by a new sub-trauma, his budding friendship with Ilara, a local artist who also trained at the academy. Ilara was everything Liam was not. She was expressive, intuitive, and completely at home in her own skin. Her art, vibrant and abstract canvases she painted in a small studio near the beach, was a direct reflection of her inner state. She moved with the same fluid grace in her life as she did in the Rhoda. Ilara became a friend and a gentle, unintentional teacher. She would take him to the local markets, encouraging him to taste unfamiliar fruits. She took him to a candomblé ceremony, not to convert him, but for him to feel the raw, powerful energy of the drums. Their conversations highlighted his deep disconnection. "You think so much, Liam," she said one afternoon as they watched the sunset from the Farol de Barra lighthouse. "It's like you live in a beautiful house, but you never leave the attic." Her presence wasn't a romantic complication. It was a mirror, reflecting back to him the vibrant, embodied life that was possible if he could just get out of his own head. His daily calls with Alvaro were a stark contrast. "Liam, the board is asking for the final projections. Did you run the stress test simulations?" Alvaro's world was one of simulations and projections, of trying to control the future by analyzing the past. Mestre Joao's world was one of presence, of meeting the unpredictable with a regulated, responsive body. Liam was caught between the two. The promotion, once the pinnacle of his ambition, now felt like a beautifully decorated cage. But the alternative, the path Mestre Joao was offering, had no guarantees. It was a leap into the unknown, a trust fall into the arms of the universe. The ghost of scarcity was having a field day, whispering of failure, poverty, and ruin. He is surrounded by mirrors and choices. Ilara reflects the person he could become, Alvaro the person he has been, and Mestre Joao the path between the two. With his entire future hanging in the balance, what physical, cellular breakthrough could possibly give him the clarity to make a choice that his logical mind deems insane? The third week in Salvador was a pressure cooker. Alvaro was demanding a decision. The acquisition was finalized, and Liam's corporate duties were complete. He had 1 week left before his flight back to Sao Paulo, back to his old life. The feeling of being torn in two was making him physically ill. He was trying to think his way to a decision, making endless pro and con lists, running mental simulations, the very tools that had led him into this prison in the first place. He went to the academy one morning, his body tight with tension, his mind a hornet's nest of anxiety. He couldn't find the Jinga at all. He felt more disconnected than ever. Seeing his struggle, Mestre Joao led him away from the group to a quiet corner of the academy. He didn't offer words of encouragement. Instead, he picked up a marimba. This was the moment. The loop of his agonizing indecision was about to be closed not by a thought, but by a vibration. "Stop trying to move," Mestre Joao said, his voice low and hypnotic. "Stop trying to think. Stop trying to do anything. Just stand and listen." He began to play a simple, repetitive rhythm on the marimba. Tun-chi-tun, tun-chi-tun. It was a sound that was both a note and a heartbeat. "Breathe with it, Liam," Mestre Joao commanded softly. Let the sound be the rhythm of your breath. Let it be the rhythm of your heart. Liam closed his eyes. He forced himself to stop the frantic inner dialogue. He focused only on the sound, that strange, primal vibration. He breathed in on the ton, out on the chi. In and out. For 10 minutes, that was his entire universe. The sound of the marimba and his own breath. And then, something shifted. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't an emotion. It was a deep, cellular event. The relentless high-frequency hum of anxiety in his nervous system, the hum he had lived with his entire life, began to quiet. It was being soothed, calmed, and recalibrated by the steady, grounding frequency of the marimba. The ghost of scarcity fell silent, lulled to sleep by the ancient rhythm. In the space that opened up, he felt something he hadn't felt since he was a small child, a profound, unconditional sense of safety. It was a feeling of being completely held, completely secure in the present moment. In that state of deep nervous system regulation, a quote from the biologist Bruce Lipton that he had once read flashed in his mind, but this time it was not an intellectual concept, but a felt reality. The environment, and our perception of the environment, controls our biology. He had changed his inner environment. He had changed his perception. And his biology had responded instantly. He opened his eyes. The world looked different, softer, more vibrant, less threatening. Mestre Joao had stopped playing and was watching him with a knowing smile. Liam started to move, not because he was told to, but because his body wanted to. He fell into a slow, easy jinga. It was fluid, it was graceful, it was effortless. It was coming from a place of deep, cellular calm. He wasn't thinking. He was being. He has finally experienced it, the biological shift from survival to safety. He has found the fix. This changes everything. But what happens when this newfound state of being collides with the hard, logical demands of the life that is waiting for him? What decision will he make from this new, embodied reality? This moment of profound biological transformation resonated with you? Subscribe for more stories that will help you get out of your head and into your power. The experience with the marimba was the reset button for Liam's entire operating system. The previous loop closed. He had found the fix. Now, he had to live from it. He walked out of the academy and back into the vibrant streets of Salvador, but he was no longer a tense observer. He was a participant. He felt the rhythm of the city not as a chaotic assault, but as an invitation. For the first time, he felt like he belonged not just in the city, but in his own skin. His first action was a testament to his new state of being. He went back to his hotel, sat down not with a spreadsheet but with a blank notebook, and called Alvaro. When his boss picked up, demanding an answer about the promotion, Liam took a slow, deep breath, tuning into the memory of the marimba. "Alvaro," he began, his voice calm and steady in a way that surprised even himself. "I am deeply grateful for the offer. But I'm going to have to decline. I won't be returning to the firm after this project." The silence from Sao Paulo was cavernous. Alvaro was sputtering, talking about contracts, loyalty, career suicide. Liam listened, but the words were like stones skipping off the surface of his new, deep calm. He wasn't making a decision based on a projection of the future, but on the profound truth of his present moment's safety. The consequences were immediate. He had officially and irrevocably severed ties with the only professional life he had ever known. He had a substantial amount of savings, but for the first time in his adult life, he had no income, no title, no 5-year plan. The ghost of scarcity tried to roar back to life, to trigger the old panic. But now, Liam had a tool. He didn't fight the fear with affirmations. He would close his eyes, recall the rhythm of the marimba, and breathe until he felt the shift in his body. He was actively regulating his own nervous system, replacing the conditioned fear response with a chosen state of calm. He spent his last week in Salvador in a state of grace. He went to the academy every day, his jinga becoming more fluid and natural. He spent his afternoons with Alara, truly seeing her and the world around him for the first time. She noticed the change immediately. "You're here," she said simply, tapping her heart. You finally moved out of the attic. He even took a samba class, and to his astonishment, he wasn't clumsy. His body, now feeling safe, was free to learn, to play, to express. He was not just thinking about a new reality, he was physically living in it. He has made the terrifying leap, dismantling his old life with a calm confidence. He has the tools to regulate his body, but the real world demands more than just a feeling of safety. It demands action. Can he translate this profound inner state into a tangible, sustainable future, or will the void he has created swallow him whole? Liam chose to stay in Salvador. He rented a small, simple apartment near the beach, a world away from his sterile São Paulo high-rise. This was his act of commitment to his new self. But the void he had created was real. This was the ultimate test promised in the previous chapter. His savings were a finite resource, and the initial bliss of his transformation began to meet the cold, hard reality of creating a new life from scratch. There were days of profound doubt. Waking up without a schedule, without a corporate identity, was disorienting. The ghost of scarcity would whisper in the quiet moments, painting vivid pictures of failure and destitution. This was the true battle, not the dramatic decision to quit, but the daily grinding work of choosing faith over fear. This was where his new practice became his salvation. He consolidated his growth by creating a new, non-negotiable daily routine. His day no longer started with checking the stock market, but with what he called his nervous system hygiene. He would go to the beach at sunrise and practice the jinga by the edge of the water. He would then sit and breathe, connecting with the rhythm of the waves, feeling the sun on his skin. He was consciously and deliberately charging his body with feelings of safety, expansion, and connection to the natural world before his analytical mind could start its litany of worries. He began to work on the business plan for his ethical investment fund, Fundo Aroeira, named after a resilient local tree. But his process was completely different. He would work for an hour, then stop, check in with his body, and regulate his nervous system if he felt any tension. He was making his state of being
the cause, and the business plan the effect. He was proving to himself, on a biological level, that it was safe to create, safe to dream, safe to build a future that was not based on the fear of scarcity but on the feeling of abundance. He was a scientist in the laboratory of his own life, and the experiment was working. The plan that emerged was not just financially sound, it was inspired, creative, and deeply authentic. He has survived the void and created a new foundation for his life, built not on logic but on biological trust. He has the plan, born from this new state of being. But a plan is used at thought until it meets the real world. How will he find the resources and the people to bring this dream, conceived in a state of flow, into physical form? The completion of the Fundo Aroeira business plan was a milestone. It was a tangible product of his new self. This closed the loop of his salutary creation and opened the one leading to the climax, manifestation in the 3D world. He had a brilliant plan, but he had burned all his bridges in the São Paulo financial world. He was an outsider with a radical idea. The how of finding funding was a giant, intimidating question mark. The old Liam would have panicked. The new Liam trusted the flow. He shared his plan not with bankers, but with the people who were part of his new reality. He showed it to Mestre Joao, who, despite not understanding the financial terminology, saw the spirit behind it. This is your thing on paper, the Mestre said with a proud smile. Liam then showed it to Elara. Elara read the plan, her artist's eye seeing the patterns and the passion he had woven into it. Liam, this is beautiful, she said, her voice full of genuine excitement. It feels like Salvador. It feels like you. Then, she said the words that would change everything. You know, my uncle, he is not a capoeirista, but he is a different kind of mestre. He has been investing in sustainable projects in Bahia for 30 years. He is always looking for people with a new kind of energy. You should talk to him. The introduction was made. Elara's uncle, a respected local businessman named Afonso, agreed to a meeting. The synchronicity was not lost on Liam. The universe was providing the how but only after it had fully embodied the who. The meeting was scheduled for the end of the week. The tension was not the frantic, frequent anxiety of his old life. It was a calm, grounded, electric of readiness. He spent the days before the meeting not by over prepping his financial models, but by going to the academy, by walking on the beach, by keeping his nervous system in that state of coherent, creative flow. He was preparing his state of being, trusting that the right words and actions would flow from it. The door has appeared. The opportunity he could never have engineered is right in front of him. This is the final test of his new self. Can he walk into this meeting and embody the calm, confident, and safe energy of his vision, proving that a regulated nervous system is ultimate key to creation? The meeting was not held in a sterile boardroom. Afonso, a man with a warm smile and the same wise eyes as his niece, suggested they met at a quiet cafe in the garden of a historic convent. The setting itself was a test. It demanded presence and humanity, not corporate aggression. When Liam arrived, Afonso was already there, sipping a small, dark coffee. He waved Liam into a chair and simply said, Lara tells me you have learned to listen to the berimbau. So, let me hear the music of your idea. As Liam began to speak, he could feel the ghost of his old self trying to surface, the urge to impress, to use jargon, to project an unassailable confidence. But he took a deep, silent breath and anchored himself in the feeling of the hinga. He spoke from his new center. He didn't use present data, he told a story. The story of an economic system that could be regenerative instead of extractive. The story of investing in the resilient spirit of the Bayan people. He was not selling a product, he was transmitting a frequency. Afonso listened intently, asking sharp, insightful questions. At one point, he challenged Liam directly. This is a beautiful vision, young man. But the world of finance is a world of sharks. How does a man who follows the rhythm of the berimbau survive in that water? This was the moment. The old Liam would have crumbled, his nervous system flooding with cortisol, his mind going blank. The new Liam met the challenge with a calm, steady gas. He didn't offer a defensive, data-driven answer. He offered his truth. You survive by not becoming a shark, Liam said, his voice even and clear. You survive by being so grounded, so stable in your own energy, that the sharks simply swim around you. You survive by creating a current so strong that it pulls the right opportunities to you. It is not about fighting the system. It is about creating a new one, based on a state of being that is immune to fear. He was describing his own journey. He was embodying his answer. Afonso was silent for a long time, studying Liam's face. He was not just evaluating a business plan, he was evaluating the nervous system of the man in front of him. He was looking for resilience, for authenticity, for the unshakable calm that is the true hallmark of power. Finally, he leaned back and a broad, genuine smile spread across his face. Welcome to Bahia, Liam said, extending his hand. Let's make some music together. The premise of the introduction was fulfilled. The reality had been created, not by a thought, but by a regulated, coherent, and profoundly safe nervous system. The dream is real. The fund is born. He has passed the ultimate test. But what does a life truly look like when it is built not on the shaky ground of thought, but on the bedrock of the body's wisdom? What is the lasting transformation? Fundo Aroeira launched 6 months later, with Afonso as its primary investor and mentor. It was an immediate success, not in the explosive, predatory way of Sao Paulo firms, but in a quiet, steady, organic way. It attracted a different kind of client, people who were looking to invest their money in a way that aligned with their soul. Liam ran the company from his small office in Salvador, a space filled with plants and the distant sound of the ocean. His work life and his real life were no longer separate. They were a seamless whole, flowing from the same regulated, creative source. His life had transformed on every level. He was not just wealthier than he had been in Sao Paulo, he was rich in a way he had never known was possible, rich in connection, in purpose, in joy. He and Lara were partners. Their relationship a beautiful dance of shared creativity and mutual respect. He was a pillar of Mestre Joao's academy, not used as a student, but
as a benefactor, ensuring the Mestre's wisdom could be passed on to future generations. He had learned the ultimate biological truth. Your nervous system is the soil in which the seeds of your thoughts are planted. If the soil is toxic, acidic with the stress hormones of survival, no seed, no matter how beautiful, can grow. But if you can tend to that soil, if you can learn to regulate it, to soothe it, to make it rich with the chemistry of safety and love, then any seed you plant will bloom into a magnificent reality. He no longer needed affirmations. His entire being had become a living, breathing affirmation of safety, abundance, and flow. His personal transformation has created a new model for success, proving that inner state is the ultimate currency. But what is the next evolution for a man who has learned to create reality from the body up? We see Liam a year later, not in his office, but on the beach at sunrise. He is not alone. He is leading a small group of people, stressed-out executives, burnt-out entrepreneurs from his old world who have sought him out. He is not teaching them finance. He is teaching them the Jenga. He picks up a marimba and begins to play the simple, steady rhythm. "Forget everything you think you know," he says, his voice full of the calm authority of lived experience. "First, we fix the feeling. Then, the reality will fix itself." He discovered that the key to the universe was not in his mind, but in his own biology. Where in your body are you holding the key to your next reality? Your nervous system is broadcasting a signal to the universe 24/7. Your thoughts are just a whisper in the wind compared to that powerful broadcast. The real work of creation is learning to change your body's song from one of fear to one of love. Right now, take one deep, slow breath. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel your belly soften. For just 10 seconds, you have changed your signal. What is one small, physical action you can commit to doing every day to soothe your nervous system? Share your commitment in the comments below. Let's make this a collective practice. For more stories that give you the tools to rewire your biology and transform your reality, make sure you subscribe and join this community of embodied creators.